Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Swannanoa Valley. It is Sunday, November the 15th, and we're coming to you as a virtual service at 10:45 a.m. on Sunday morning. The link is sent to you in your email every week from Evan, or you can also go to the Weekly Current to get the link to get to the service. Also, after the service, we have a coffee hour on Zoom, and that link too is in your email and in the Current. So wherever you're joining us from, we're glad you're here, and we hope you take away something to give you a little lift for the week ahead. Right now, in the year 2020, we're still dealing with that pesky fifth principle of ours, using the democratic process. And it's challenging us all, I guess, to continue to be patient with the democratic process and hope that all things work out as they should. So we are a busy congregation, and we have a number of announcements every week in the Current. This week, again, we want to highlight the fact that we're doing anti-racism training on Thursday with our minister, Michael Carter, via Zoom, and it will be from 4 to 6:15 p.m. And again, the link is in your Current, and I'm sure it will also be sent email. So we're having, this week we've had a little bit of excitement, having our first virtual auction, and our Vice President, Evan Yannick, would like to make a little announcement.
Thanks, Anna, but it's not going to be me giving the announcement. It's going to be the chair of the auction committee, Larry Perlman.
Hi, Larry Perlman here. I know that you know what I'm going to share a joy about. And really what it is, it's about how wonderful you are. And by you, I mean our congregation and friends of our congregation, and also the Black Mountain business community. You know, in 2019, when we had our auction, we had goals, and our goals were to have 100 items to auction off and to make $6,000 in revenue. And what we actually did was we had 130 items to auction off and $6,400 in revenue, roughly speaking. So for 2020, we set new goals. We wanted to come up with 150 items and make $7,500. Now, 2020 is a year where individuals were facing economic crises, health crises, and of course, political crises under a lot of stress. And the local businesses, at least the ones that stayed in business, well, we all know that they were fighting to stay in business. So they were challenged with an unprecedented year of economic hardships. And yet that together, you, our congregants, and the community here in Black Mountain came through so that we had over 200 items to auction off, and we ended up making $8,400, or about $8,300. So that means we can give more than $1,600 to Bounty and Soul. We can give more than $1,600 to the Swannanoa Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Corporation, and still have $5,000 to go to UUCSV to improve the grounds around our chapel and to build a children's playground. So I just want to say thank you all, you donors and you bidders, because you made this all possible. Oh, and we should announce the winner of our final raffle drawing, which is a beautiful basket from Ingles, is Gail Valentinson, if I'm pronouncing that right. And it's Gail, even if I'm not pronouncing it right. So Gail, call me, I have the basket, and you can arrange to pick it up.
And with that, let the service begin.
This is a quotation from the Honorable Ruth Bader Ginsburg, our late Supreme Court Justice. She said, "Fight for the things that you care about, but do it in such a way that others will join you."
This is hymn number 303, We Are the Earth, Upright and Proud.
Our reading this morning, number 655 in the back of the great hymnal. Change alone is unchanging. Whosoever wishes to know about the world must learn about it in its particular details, because knowledge is not intelligence. In searching for the truth, be ready for the unexpected, because change alone is unchanging. The same road goes up and down. The beginning of a circle, it's also its end. Not I, but the world says all is one. And yet everything comes in its season. This is the time in the service where we invite you to share your joys and concerns or your sorrows. It's been a week, and in some ways it's still not over with the events of the election and what's going on, but we're kind of over one hurdle and there's always another. That may be a concern of yours. Perhaps you're feeling both joy and concern. Joy that maybe we can turn the page because we have a new leader. Whatever it is, this is the time for you to share it with your community, with your free, religious, liberal community. So with that said, the floor is now yours.
I had one email joy come from Jim Carillon. He says that last week he and Annelinde had Finley and his whole new family over, including his brother Nathaniel, who's age 3. They came for Sunday afternoon dinner, and this was 2 weeks after his arrival, hopefully permanently with his new parents, Hope and Adam. They had a lovely afternoon and took everyone to a nearby park after hamburgers and hot dogs from the grill, with Aline's fabulous baked beans. It was so fun playing this more grandparenting role. They are fortunate to be able to do this and can't wait until they do it again soon. What a joy.
Okay. Hi, I'm Marty Saltzman, and I have a joy today. My brother, Dr. Richard Hood's first novel, Regret the Dark Hour, published by Down and Out Press, was chosen as a finalist in the general fiction in the Independent Author Network Book of the Year Award for 2020. Here it is, Regret the Dark Hour.
Get it on Amazon.
Get it on Amazon.
I have something I'd like to read. It's something from Robert Tynes. Most of you probably know that Robert's in the hospital with a cancer diagnosis, and he sent this email. So I'm just going to read it. And this is Robert speaking. I am so appreciative of all the love and support from this congregation and community and friends. I want to let everyone know that their good wishes are being felt in a very positive way by me. I'm still feeling good, amazingly. And I walked 6 laps today, which is about 1.5 miles around this huge floor at Mission Hospital. I'm happy that I still have my appetite, and I've been eating everything that I can. Betty's been bringing me fresh fruits and vegetables, and I've been able to see Betty and both of our daughters this last week. Because of COVID, the hospital restricts patients to 1 person per day. So that and your good wishes and support are helping me through this. I should know after a bone marrow biopsy on Monday, the results of the chemo. By the way, he told me that it looked really good. The doctors told him it looked really good. So by Tuesday evening or Wednesday morning, I may have an idea of whether the chemo has worked. If it worked partially, I may go in for round 2 of the same chemo treatment. But my body has tolerated the treatment very, very well. And I just hope that the leukemia cells have not. Time will tell. I'll be here in Mission for several more weeks, and I just want to say again how much I appreciate the support from the congregation and the community and friends and family. Thanks for sending me your good vibrations. Robert Tynes.
For those of you who out there who, for whatever reason, decided not to join in or just to hold within yourself your joy, concern, or sorrow, know that we keep you in our hearts and in our minds and in our thoughts, and that all you need to do is reach out. And in this troubled, exciting time, we will be there. Thank you again. We have a treat. Susan Hicks will be doing the meditation this morning. So please open your hearts and open your minds and listen to her words.
RBG, a poem by Megan Minutillo. Did you know that the name Ruth means to have compassion for the misery of another? A fitting name for a woman who devoted her entire life to supporting those who needed it, to defending those who required it, and blazing a trail where there was once only a thicket. Because of her, we dream bigger and laugh louder and live larger. Because of her, we have control over our bodies and futures and lives. Because of her, when we see our fellow sisters and brothers in pain, we do what we can to help. And that is the greatest legacy. You shape your legacy in the way you interact with people who are not your own. It's in the way you hold a door open for a stranger, in the way you speak to the cashier ringing up your groceries, in the way you donate to a cause to benefit strangers you will never meet amidst a crisis. It's in the way you have compassion for the misery of another human and the choices you make to create a better tomorrow, not just for your loved ones, but for us all. It's in the way our RBG lived her life, and it can be how you live yours too. And now is the time in our service in which we take up the offertory. You can find a donation link in the order of service as posted on Facebook or in the Current, or you can simply go to www.uusv.org and look for the donate button there. We thank you in advance for the gifts that you give that help support the work of our organization.
Day. This is hymn number 212. We are dancing Sarah's circle.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg has become what we would call an icon. She's definitely a national treasure. For me, she's a woman for all seasons. And I say that simply because there are people in each generation. And they all don't reach the celebrity that she has, but there are people in each generation that speak truth to power. And they do it with compassion and firmness and love. This was the type of person that Ruth Bader Ginsburg was, and she's a woman for all seasons. She was born on the Ides of March 15, 1933 in Brooklyn, New York. She died September 18, 2020 from pancreatic cancer at the age of 87 years old. Her mother was Celia Amster. Her father, Nathan Bader. Her mother's occupation was a garment factory worker. Her father's occupation was a merchant. She was Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of these United States from August 10, 1993 until September 18, 2020. She was appointed by then President Bill Clinton. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, or RBG as she is affectionately called by some, she spent a lifetime flourishing in the face of adversity before being appointed a Supreme Court justice, where she successfully fought against gender discrimination and unified the liberal bloc of the court. She was born Joan Ruth Bader on March 15, 1933. Her father was a furrier at the height of the Great Depression, and her mother worked in a garment factory. Ginsburg's mother instilled a love of education in Ginsburg through her dedication to her brother, foregoing her own education to finance her brother's college expenses. Her mother heavily influenced her early life and watched Ginsburg excel at James Madison High School, but was diagnosed with cancer herself. We're talking about her mom. And she died the day before Ginsburg's high school graduation. RBG's success in academia continued throughout her years at Cornell University, where she graduated at the top of her class in 1954. And as some of you may recall, that was the year of Brown versus Board of Education. That was the Supreme Court ruling there during that year. And that same year, Ruth Bader became Ruth Bader Ginsburg after marrying her husband, Martin. Martin died in 2010. After graduation, she put her education on hold to start a family. She had her first child in 1955, shortly after her husband was drafted for 2 years of military service. And upon his arrival, coming back from the military, she enrolled at Harvard Law School. Ginsburg's personal struggles neither decreased in intensity nor deterred her in any way from reaching and exceeding her academic goals, even when her husband was diagnosed with testicular cancer in 1956 during the first year of law school. Ginsburg took on the challenge of keeping her sick husband up to date with his studies while maintaining her own position at the top of the class. And this is her life. She's always pushing. She's always going forward. She may be delayed. She may even get knocked down, but she gets right back up. And this was her inner fortitude. At Harvard, she tackled the challenges of motherhood and a male-dominated school where she was one of 9 females in a 500-person class. She faced gender discrimination from even the highest authorities there. They chastised her for taking a man's spot at Harvard Law School. She served as the first female member of the Harvard Law Review. Her husband did recover from cancer, graduated from Harvard, and moved to New York City to accept a position at a law firm there. RBG had 1 more year of law school left, so she transferred. She transferred to Columbia Law School and served on their law review as well. And she graduated first in her class at Columbia Law in 1959. Even her exceptional academic record was not enough to shield her from the gender-based discrimination women faced in the workplace in the 1960s. She had difficulties finding a job until a favorite Columbia law professor explicitly refused to recommend any other graduates before U.S. District Judge Edmund L. Palmieri hired Ginsburg as a clerk. Ginsburg clerked under Judge Palmieri for 2 years, and after this, she was offered some jobs at law firms, but always at a much lower salary than her male counterparts. She instead took some time to pursue her other legal passion, which was civil procedure, choosing to join the Columbia Project on International Civil Procedure. This was a great passion of hers. This project fully immersed her in Swedish culture, where she lived abroad to do research for her book on Swedish civil procedure practices. When she returned to these United States, she accepted a job as a professor at Rutgers University Law School in 1963. And that's a position that she held until accepting an offer to teach at Columbia in 1972. The world was beating a path to her door. At Columbia, there she became the first female professor at Columbia to earn tenure. And it reminds me of during the election last week, a young lady said to me, she said, I told all my friends to be careful, to look out for all the glass lying around. And she was saying that in the context of Kamala Harris breaking the ceiling, if you will, to become vice president of these United States and standing on the shoulders of so many women before her. But I like that, just kind of got to step over the glass, because the ceiling, if it's not shattered, it's at least broken. Ginsburg also directed the influential Women's Rights Project of the American Civil Liberties Union during the 1970s. And in this position, she led the fight against gender discrimination and successfully argued 6, count them, 6 landmark cases before the U.S. Supreme Court. Ginsburg took a broad look at gender discrimination, fighting not just for the women left behind, but for her brothers as well. She fought for gender discrimination against men as well. Ginsburg experienced her share of gender discrimination, even going so far as to hide her pregnancy from her Rutgers colleagues. She accepted Jimmy Carter's appointment to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia in 1980, and she served on that court for 13 years until 1933, when President Bill Clinton appointed her to the Supreme Court of the United States of America. RBG began her career as a justice, where she left off as an advocate fighting for women's rights. In 1996, Ginsburg wrote the majority opinion in the United States versus Virginia, holding that qualified women could not be denied admission to Virginia Military Institute. Her style in advocating from the bench matches her style from the time at the ACLU. It was slow and steady, and it was also calculated. Instead of creating sweeping limitations on gender discrimination, she attacked specific areas of discrimination and violations of women's rights. And she did this one at a time so as to send a message to the legislatures on what they can and cannot do. Her attitude is that major social change, not just major social change, should not come from the courts, but from the Congress and other legislatures. This method allows for social change to remain in Congress's power while also receiving guidance from the court. She does not shy away from giving pointed guidance when she feels the need. Illustration, she dissented in Ledbetter versus Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company, where the plaintiff, a female worker, yes, being paid significantly less than the males with the same qualifications, she sued under Title VII, but was denied relief under a statute of limitations issue. The facts of this case mixed her passion for federal procedure and general discrimination. She broke with tradition and wrote a highly colloquial version of her dissent to read from the bench. She also called for Congress to undo this improper interpretation of the law in her dissent, and then worked with President Obama to pass the very first piece of legislation that he signed, the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act of 2009, a copy of which was hanging in her office. Until her death on September 18, 2020, Ginsburg worked with a personal trainer in the Supreme Court exercise room, and for many years she could lift more than both Justices Breyer and Kagan. Until the 2018 term, Ginsburg, until then, 2018, had not missed a day of oral arguments, not even when she was undergoing chemotherapy for pancreatic cancer, after surgery for colon cancer, or the day after her husband passed away in 2010. Justice Ginsburg proved time and again that she was a force of nature. She was a force to be reckoned with. For those who doubted her capacity to effectively complete her judicial studies, needed only to look at her record in oral arguments, where she was, until her death, among the most avid questioners on the bench. The late Justice Ginsburg became the first woman and the first Jewish person to lie in state in the U.S. Capitol. And though it would be impossible to list every triumph that she achieved, let's just look back to trace some of the impact that she's had on women's lives in America. These are just a few. It's not an exhaustive list. Just a few of the contributions she made for women, both on a legal and a personal level. Before Ginsburg, state-funded schools didn't have to admit women. In the 1996 United States versus Virginia case, she wrote the majority opinion that it is unconstitutional for schools funded by taxpayer dollars to bar women. She says there's no reason to believe that the admission of women capable of all the activities required of Virginia Military Institute's cadets would destroy the institute rather than enhance its capacity to serve the more perfect union. Number 2, women couldn't sign a mortgage or have a bank account without a male cosigner. That seems, it's so archaic today, but that's where we were as a nation. Ginsburg paved the way for the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, which passed in 1974 and allowed women to apply for credit cards and mortgages without a male cosigner. Number 3, she helped make strides towards getting equal pay for women. In 2007, Ginsburg famously dissented from the Supreme Court's decision on the pay discrimination case versus Ledbetter and Goodyear Tire. And she called on Congress to change the law and to strengthen equal pay protections. Number 4, her essence on the court preserved a woman's right to choose. She was a crucial vote on the current court to keep Roe versus Wade. Even though she had doubts about the way the monumental case was decided, she was in no doubt about a woman's right to choose. Number 5, she pushed to protect pregnant women in the workplace, right? She had to hide her pregnancy when she was at Rutgers. In 1972, Ginsburg argued that in excluding a pregnant woman from the Air Force, like in the case of Strzok versus Secretary of Defense, is sex discrimination, pure and simple. It was standard 50 years ago for women to be fired from their jobs when pregnant. Number 6, Ginsburg argued women should serve on juries. During the 1979 case, Duren versus Missouri, jury duty was optional for women in several states because it was viewed to be a burden, because the woman's role was to be the center of home and family life. Ginsburg, who represented Billy Duren in the case, argued that women should serve on juries on the basis that they are valued the same as men. In a 2009 interview with USA Today, Ginsburg said this: "Women belong in all places where decisions are being made. It shouldn't be that women are the exception." Number 7, she was a key vote in granting same-sex marriages. In the 2015 case, Obervirgfeld versus Hodges, which allowed queer women and the rest of the LGBTQ community the right to same-sex marriage in all 50 states, ended in a 5-4 ruling. Without Ginsburg, that outcome may have been very different. Number 8, Ginsburg made it acceptable to be a confident, hardworking female leader. Though Ginsburg left her mark on the legal world, she also had a lasting influence on women on an individual level by being an example of a powerful woman, a confident woman, a strong woman in her writing, speaking, and working as a judge. And Ginsburg's impact on environment didn't stop with her generation or the next. She continues beyond the grave to influence and to energize young women. RBG has become an icon and a national treasure. Let me share with you some of her pearls of wisdom. She says, "Fight for the things you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. Reacting in anger or annoyance will not advance one's ability to persuade. My mother told me to be a lady, and for that she meant to be your own person, to be independent." This is my favorite. Well, I have a few favorites, but this is one of them. I think, Ginsburg says, she thinks that daughters can change the perception of their fathers. She says, "I do hope that some of my dissents will one day be the law. Dissents speak to a future generation." And of her late husband, Martin, she had said that Marty was an extraordinary person. Of all the boys I dated, he was the only one who really cared that I had a brain. And he was always making me feel that I was better than I thought I was. On women's rights, she says women's rights are an essential part of the overall human rights agenda, trained on the equal dignity and ability to live in freedom that all people should enjoy. She says, people ask me sometimes, when do you think it'll be enough? When do you think it'll ever be enough? When will there be enough women on the Supreme Court? She says, my answer is that when there are 9. On education, the study of law was unusual for women of my generation, for most girls growing up in the 1940s, and she hopes that will change, and it is changing even as we speak. On having it all, she says you can't have it all at once. You cannot. Who, man or woman, has had it all at once? She says, over my lifespan, I think I have had it all, but in different periods of times when things were rough. And if you have a caring life partner, you help the other person when that person needs it. What she says here, I love. She says, I ask no favor for my sex. All I ask of our brethren is that they take their feet off of our necks. I love that quote. It reminds me of the quote by Malcolm X, who said, that's not a chip you see on my shoulder. That's your foot on my neck. On perseverance, real change, she says, enduring change happens one step at a time. And she said that if I had any talent that God could give me, I would be a great diva. Well, one could argue that Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a great diva, and yet she was so much more than that. Rest in peace, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and rest in power as well. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a woman for all seasons. I hope you enjoyed today's service. This was our tribute to Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a voice that we definitely, oh my God, I wish she was still here, but she is here in some ways, and we can take her spirit, and we have our marching orders as we go forth into a new year and a new government.
This is hymn number 348, Guide My Feet.
Our closing words today are RBG's own words. When she was asked about what she would most like to be remembered for, she said, "Just as someone who did whatever she could, with whatever limited talent she had, to move society along in the direction I would like it to be for my children and grandchildren. May her spirit live in each of us."